It's 1 o'clock. We're going to begin our very first budget hearing for 2012. It is March the 22nd. And I hope everybody's had an opportunity to look over some of it that was handed out to you last week. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rogers, and we'll begin, I guess, on the beginning.
Today we're going to start with the general fund budget workshop, and you'll see on the screen before you and in your documentation that you have in your packet that we're going to start with the revenue and go down the revenue sheet and talk a little bit about that. In this budget preparation spreadsheet, what we have compiled for you is some historical information from the previous years. We have 3 columns that make up the forecast for this year. One is the actual as of the end of January. One column is an estimate column from the end of January to the end of June. And then there's a total column that says forecast FY 2011-12. Provided before you is the budget from the prior year and, of course, the budget to be considered today at this meeting. Starting with the property tax. We get some assessment information from the county, and based on that information, the projection for next year's property tax revenue is approximately $7.9 million. We had a budgeted 8 this year. We're going to forecast probably somewhere around 7.8 or 7.5. Any questions about the property tax? That's one of our major revenue streams is the property tax. So I want to give you a chance to absorb that a little bit. If you don't have any questions, I'd like to continue on down. The next little group of line items is delinquent property taxes. These are just rough estimates of approximately what we think we'll collect on delinquent property taxes. We kind of use prior information to kind of gather that those numbers. Going on down to interest and penalties and court costs, we are budgeting $20,000. We've been collecting in the range of approximately $20,000 a year. The next line down is the in lieu of. We're estimating about $65,000. We collected $65,000 last year, a little bit more than that in the prior years. But I want to keep that consistent with what we think we're going to do this year. Next line down is payments in lieu of taxes from TDA. We collected approximately $26,000 last year. Looks like we're going to collect about $398 this year, and I've put in the budget for next year $395. This is for TVA and NES in lieu of. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. On the next line down, we have our local sales tax. This is another major revenue stream. We've done fairly well with the sales tax. Last year we collected almost $3.3 million. This year we're going to collect approximately $4.5. So I'm going to estimate the budget for next year to be $3.475. Next line down is our wholesale alcohol beverage tax. We're averaging about $3,000 a year, and we're anticipating that to continue into next year. Wholesale beer tax, we're collecting about $401 this year. We collected $363 last year. I set the budget up at about $395. Wholesale liquor tax, we're going to collect about $140 this year. We collected $125 last year, $165 the prior year. I'm estimating about $150,000 for next year. Civil penalties, beer permits. We collected about $1,000 last year, $7,000 the year before. Looks like we're going to collect about $5,000 this year. I'm estimating the budget to be about $3,000. Let me put some headings up here so it'll make it a little easier for you to read that. Okay, going on down to the wholesale beer tax. We collect around $360 a year. This year we're going to collect about 401. I've already went through that one. Looks like I'm on the budget about 395. I think I'd already talked about that one. Business tax, we collected 526 last year, 549 the year before. We'll come in a little under this year at around 500. I'm going to estimate about 510 for next year. Penalties for business tax, we haven't been collecting a lot since the state took that over. I guess there's not as much late penalties going on there, so I'm going to estimate the budget to be about 500 there. We collected 393 last year, and looks like we're going to collect about 365 this year. Cable franchise fees, this is from Comcast. I'm estimating about 290 for our budget. We're going to forecast it will come in about 284. The actual for last year was 272. So I think that's pretty much in line with where we need to be. For the hotel motel tax, this is pretty consistent in the low 40s. We collected 43 last year, 40 the year before, 43 the year before that. I estimate the budget about 42 for next year. Going down to our permit section on the beer license application fees, this kind of varies. It generally runs in a $2,000 range, so I set the budget up for next year around $2,000. In the liquor license application fees, it's pretty consistent around the $500 range. Liquor license privilege tax, we collect anywhere. Last year we collected $1,350. Prior years before that, it's around $2,000. I set the budget up at $2,000 for that. Building permits. This one is hard to gauge. Hopefully, we will see a little spike. I don't anticipate seeing a lot. Last year we collected $65,000. The year before that, $75,000. Looks like we're going to collect about $57,000 this year. Set the budget up at about $60,000. Mechanical permits, no, plumbing permits, sorry. We collected $6,000 last year, about $6,000 this year. I'm bumped it up just a little bit to $7,000 for next year. Mechanical permits, we collected about 63 last year, about 4,000 the years before that. Looks like we're going to collect about 4,000 this year. I set the budget up at about 3,500. Plans and review fees. We've done fairly well this year with plans and reviews, but you know, it's kind of iffy if that'll continue. I've estimated that at about 5,000 for next year. We've had a couple of good years, but you never know what's going to go on there. Inspection fees. We don't collect a lot in inspection fees. I put 500 in for next year. Other permits, we've been collecting anywhere from 10 to 15 to 17,000. I estimated about 10,000 for next year. Our next section is our state revenue, our state sales tax. Looks like we're going to collect right around $2 million this year. We collected 1.8 last year. I kind of split the difference and estimated about 1.9 for next year. State income tax, this is our hall tax. This is a tax that's being phased out. So I'm trying to reduce that budget each year to kind of phase that out, estimating at about 25 for this next budget year. State beer tax, we collected about 13,000 last year. Looks like we may hit close to that, or maybe even a little bit more, around 16 this year. I estimate the budget is 13 for next year. State alcoholic beverage tax, this runs anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 to 7,000. I estimated that at about 5,000 for next year. State gasoline inspection fees, we have been getting, let's see, last year we collected 57, the year before that 56, the year before that 60. Looks like we're going to collect about 63 this year. So I'm I'm estimating the budget to be as well around the $63,000 range for next year. State Street contract maintenance. This is the mowing and litter pickup. This is pretty consistent. About we bill the state for around $4,200 every year. That rate hasn't changed in several years. They allow us 12 litter pickups and 6 mowing of the median on Murfreesboro Road. And our next section is our Parks and Recreation fees section. There's also a grant line, the TML grant. If we apply for that and get approved, that's about $2,500. Fees and commissions. Last year we collected $6,000. The year before that, $9,600. This year we're kind of coming a little bit under, and it may be that those fees start coming in closer to the spring and summer. So I may be a little low on the forecast there, but I'm estimating about $5,000 for next year. Clerk fees and business tax. This is a small fee. We put in $100 for next year. Alarm fees. We collect very little on that. We put in $100 for next year also on that one. Recreation activities. I believe this is probably the building rentals and that we collected 67 last year. Looks like we're going to come in about 45, 46 this year. Estimated about 50,000 for for next year. The next section is new to the general fund. We have combined the 124 library fund with the general fund, and with doing that we pulled over the revenues, the estimated revenues from the 124 fund, and each of those line items that you see there are based on the historical information from the 124 fund, which total of that is about 29,000. And I believe that the first two lines, that 10,000 should have dropped down to fines and penalties, and then the 1,000 should drop down to donations and gifts. And I'm going to make that change right quick there. Isn't that, Teresa, you think that's right? I'll just see that there. And we had some, we received some revenue from copies and fax and lost books, lost cards, sale of used books, and some other miscellaneous revenues. Court fines, the city court fines and costs, we're trending down a little bit this year. Looks like we're estimating about $342,000 this year. We have collected in the past, and as high as $639,000. I didn't feel comfortable raising that a lot, so I set that at about $375,000. Court fines from that we get from Rutherford County, looks like we collect anywhere from $28,000 to $40,000 a year. I estimated the budget for next year to be about $30,000. Impound fees, my court fines from the state, we get very little. Put in $200 for next year. Impound fees, we've got put in about $500 for next year. Sex offender registration, that's generally about $1,500 a year. We'll put in $1,500 for next year. The next section is our other revenue section. Interest earnings, estimating about $2,000. We estimated some sale of general items. This is some items that we generally put on gov deals. We put general items, fixed assets, police supplies, and some police fixed assets, and we just kind of rough estimated what we might have a possibility of selling some items there. The next line down is the donation or the grant, dispatch grant from Rutherford County. We've been fortunate to receive that grant for several years in a row, and that is at about $12,000 a year. National Night Out donations, I estimated about $500 for this next year, and that may come in more or less. Old Timers Day, we've done really well this year with Old Timers Day. Didn't want to overestimate that for next year, so I did kind of put that in at a little bit lower figure of 15,000. The pageant, we put in a little bit of revenue income for the pageant. Put in about other financing sources, put in $3,000, and that is, it could be anything is, other financing sources is miscellaneous revenues. It could be anything like a rebate check or a refund. We generally get just a little bit of miscellaneous revenue, and I put in $3,000 for next year. That brings our total revenue to $15,937,440. And if you'll look on down, there is already a line in there for the total expenditures. We'll go over those next, but the total expenditures will total up $15,868,509, and that will leave us with a surplus of $68,931 for the year. And if you'll look a few rows down at the bank fund balance, and if you'll follow me a little bit, at the end of June of 2011, our bank balance was $3,116,000. Forecast-wise, we should wind up at about $5.5 million, and then for next year we should stay at around $5.5 million. So that puts us a little bit of money back in our reserve. And so, do you have any questions about revenues? See anything that needs to be changed? Anything you don't feel comfortable about?
Stop, just speak up. Whenever you want us to stop, just give us a shout out.
If you don't have any questions about revenues, we can start looking at the expenses, and we'll start with the legislative board. Do you want me to go line by line or kind of go the total by department?
We've got your
I'm
capital
sorry.
package
I'm sorry,
in
the
there
capital,
as well.
yeah.
Keep going.
Do you want to talk
Got
about
what?
Yeah, these are all where we redid the capital projects.
Okay, am I on the right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, keep
Okay.
going. I'm sorry.
I got
It
it.
should be, we should now be on page
8.
8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about capital items first, Mayor, or would you want to go straight to expenses?
I think let's keep going with
Okay.
this, and then we can, when we get to an item, then we can, each department, we can show what we've done on the capital.
Okay. And I can pull the capital up on the toggle back and forth. On the legislative board, didn't make a lot of changes. Budget is staying about the same as our forecast. It's staying about the same as prior year. We don't have a lot of changes in this area. The pay scales have stayed the same. The only thing that went up a little bit was the health insurance. We took a couple line items down that kind of offset that. On the next page is the judicial. This is our judge and our attorney. Didn't make a lot of changes there. Went up on the insurance a little bit, down on some legal services. Budget overall is staying about the same last year. City administrator. This consists of the budget for the city administrator and a administrative assistant. We moved one employee from HR to this department for for the next budget year. We also had moved one employee out of this department, so overall, the budget is pretty close to the same as it was for prior year. Insurance went up a little bit. Maybe any questions about the city administrator department? We left the position in there for the city administrator. That is an unfilled position at this time. Our next section of expenses generally is elections. We haven't been budgeting for any elections in quite a while. We're not going to have any need for any expense this year. I think our elections are going to coincide with the regular election. The next department is the city recorder. Wages have been increased by 3% across the board, with the exception of some that we'll discuss later. Wages were up 3%, insurance is up. We moved the e-civis from other professional services down to repair and maintenance. The e-civis is the grant writing program that we utilize. That's about all the change that we made in that department. Tax department, we increased that budget. There are several things that have happened in the tax department. Of course, we do have the 3% increase, a little bit increase in insurance. We added some other professional services. This will cover any audits or reassessments or reappraisals that the county does that bills us for. We also had to add in a line item for the tax relief program. We're estimating about $7,000 for next year. We're thinking this year's going to come in somewhere between 5 and 7. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Treasurer department. This consists of the finance department. Changed the allocation with the wage increase. That also changes our other wages line. The allocation is where we charge other departments for some of the services we provide in this department, such as the service we provide for water billing and reconciling and posting cash and doing the different duties that we do there. That gets charged out to them. We did put in $4,000 for, it's actually listed under other professional services. This will cover a part-time person to help out with our imaging and scanning laserfish needs, and also added a small item of equipment for an additional scanner. Other than the increase in health insurance and the 3% increase, we've kept the expenses pretty much the same.
And I will point out as we get to them, those two items were on her 5-year plan.
The part-time scanner.
Yeah, we'll try to point those out as we get to them.
Just real quick on that, did we, I know we talked about at the retreat about looking into some sort of company that may come in and do some of the scanning. Was that ever looked into as far as?
Yes, we have. We've gotten some pricing back, and it's like 6.5 cents a page to scan. I'm thinking that the boxes, the banker boxes that we have probably have at least 1,000 pages in them. That's $65 a box. I think we can do that ourselves in-house.
Okay.
You know, we can have a part-time high school or college student at minimum wage probably, and we can do that a lot cheaper. Our next department is the Human Resource Department. This department, we did add the 3% increase. We moved one employee out to admin. With moving an employee out, that reduces the allocation for the other departments. We moved all the employee relations lines up into the to the HR department now instead of having them spread out. I think we had some employee relations in police, and I can't remember, a couple other departments had some minor money. In the under other professional services, we did add about, I can't remember exactly the amount. We added some expense there due to some legal needs that may come up in this next year. If you have any questions about that, Fred is here if he needs to clarify any of that. We did add some money in for travel. Other than the wage increase, there was no that was about all the increases we have for that department.
And also on some of his that he had asked for in the 5-year plan that was on this sheet actually was able to be done this budget. So that's why if you go to comparing your 5-year plans, if it's not on there at all, it means it was completed. So, and I do have notes on those if y'all ever want to compare. But that may be why you see some of those things, they were actually completed. And I see, and on the employees, you'll see where we gave him the upgrade for this year. When one of his retires, rather than having 2 people, he wants to upgrade to actually get somebody experienced in HR. So we gave him the upgrade on that.
If you don't have any other questions, we'll move on down to engineering. We took out one employee out of engineering and moved that person to planning. We changed the allocation because of moving that employee out reduces the allocation. We added some plotter maintenance. And I believe this department has asked for a vehicle that is, you will notice that information will be down in the debt service part of the expense budget. And I think that was was that the only other item, Mayor, that
Yeah, I think that was they really did want the vehicle, and we did put that in there. They desperately need a vehicle.
and that was put in our capital plan
Yes.
as a lease or at least purchase type vehicle, so we will add that in our debt service portion of the general fund budget. The next department is our IT department. We moved one employee out of this department into the public relations department. That changes your allocations when you do that. We added some zero client training. There was that would be under line item 148, employee education. We also added a couple $1,000s to subscriptions for the Sonic wall. We have the new phone system budgeted in this department under telephones and cell phones. We're expecting that expense to be consistent. Hopefully we'll get that system in this year, but maybe next year. Repair and maintenance, that didn't change. The only other line item change was line item 945, which is the thin client request that IT department has put in their budget. That's to cover computer equipment.
And again, that was his server that he was asking for. So, again, I'm just trying to point out those things on our capital thing so y'all will recognize that we acknowledge everybody's discussions. Okay.
Our next department is the planning department. This is a new department that has, we are budgeting for next year. Kyle and Derek worked on the expenses for this department and have done their best guess estimate for next year. This will probably be revised next year with more actual numbers. We'll have better figures. Right now, we're just kind of estimating some of the expenses that may be incurred in this department. And most of these line items were split. They were pulled out of codes and maybe a little bit out of engineering. I can't remember. Did we pull something out of engineering, Kyle? All out of engineering? Okay. We pulled, we didn't add any additional money. We reduced engineering's budget for each of the line items you see here. We moved them from engineering down to planning. Our next department is a codes department. We did add the fire inspector to this department. With adding a person, that increases some of your benefits. There was a request for some employee training to keep up with CEU requirements. Other than that, let's see, we moved communication lease down to debt service. That's for radios. And we also included $100,000 here for condemnation, and you'll have to excuse my description. That's not computer equipment. It's supposed to be condemnation.
And also, they'll have a vehicle
Yes.
going into the debt service.
Yes, they will have a vehicle.
So,
If there's no questions, we'll go on down further. The next department is City Hall. The only thing, we increased City Hall by approximately $50,000 for insurance purposes. 37 of that will cover ongoing issue we have for a payment that we need to make to a company called Logic for some workers' comp insurance issues that we've had, that we're in a pool, and that this payment will be due July 1st. That was about the only line item that we changed was the insurance. The next section is special project census. We're not going to have any census related expenses this year. So we can skip on down to the police department. This department has quite a few changes. I'll try to cover most of them. The mayor can help me out here. In our wage section, we did increase the officers, and that's the street, is it the street officers, Chief? We did increase their wage by $1.50 an hour. Everyone else got a 3%. This is, of course, to help us to have a better wage scale for new employees and make us more attractive for employment. We did eliminate line item 129. This was money that we were transferring from the drug fund to cover the drug guys' wages. We're no longer doing that because the drug fund's revenues are coming in the drug fund revenues are very low, so we wanted to eliminate that for this next year. If that changes, we can relook at that next year. Of
Phyllis,
course-
the one thing I wanted to point out on overtime on that one, we have a alcohol saturation grant from GHSO, Governor's Highway Safety Office, that's almost 42,000. So this year, we may be at or slightly over, well, but we will be over budgeted.
Yes.
But you got to remember that almost $42,000 is coming out of that overtime line item, but there wasn't almost 42,000 added to it
Right.
when we got the grant. So those are offsetting.
Right.
But you'll see that that's the reasoning behind it.
Right.
The revenue was there to fund it, but it all comes out of the general fund line item budget that was there initially.
That's true. That will be offset by any revenues we get.
On the dollar and a half, an hour wage on the street office, is that with or without the 3%?
Without
That's
it.
Flat.
It's flat $1.50.
The ones that get the dollar and a half, not gonna get the 3%.
That's correct. So I think the $1.50 really comes out to about $1.10 increase.
And what this is, we sat down long and hard, figured out this is where our biggest turnover is. It's our greatest expense of having to train, retrain, and continue this process. Also, we want to get with the chief and Evan and talk about some type of form that they sign if we pay for the training, et cetera, where they will stay with us a certain amount of time. If not, they have to reimburse us. That'll come later, get all that done. Also, the reason we've done this, what we've done is we pulled that out for a different compensation thing. We know everybody's title. We know what their title is. We know what they do. We don't have to do anything with the study. We got to start somewhere. That right there is our biggest turnover, so we started there. We've given the general population over here their 3%, but we've also allocated funds into the HR immediately to start the process because it's going to take longer because you have labor 1, labor 2 here, labor 1, labor 2 here. So it's going to take us much longer to do that, but we want to have it in place when we're at this table next time. We want to have it done and it's ready to go, but we still got to give them something until we get to that point.
And I think, if I may interject, the $1.50 is on the entry step, correct?
Yes.
And then the other steps are actually built at 3%,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Up to 9 steps. So it won't be true across the board $1.50 for the police officer rank. It will be on that entry level and then 1.03, multiply it 1.03 for each one then from there. So some of them will be $1.50 or close to it, but otherwise on through the line it'll be less than that. So it's not a straight across the board for every single one of them.
Everybody gets something.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Mayor, can I go back to what you're talking about, that study? Is that something that we think we can have done by this time next year and get?
I think so. There's some things that we're doing already in-house as far as the labor position. We've got some things we're trying to clean up. We have a representation on the job description. Yeah, I think that one of the things that we'll be able to do as far as the wage study, then what we believe that we really be impactful is that once we start to build up, being able to assess cities across the nation, local governments across the nation, where we'll have access to wage information there. So then some of the other things that we've done, some of the studies that we've been involved in, we've got information from several cities already this year. So we just try to collect data so that we'll be able to be positioned to do that.
I just think it's important, going back to what Kyle said at one of our meetings, that the rest of the employees, not that we understand the problem that we have with PD, but the rest employees, that they're also in the long-term plans.
Absolutely, but we didn't want to, we wanted to give them something this year, say, hey, we are
Sure.
meaning business, but it's gonna take more time because so many job titles have changed. Like
Sure.
we get somebody in there, we've got to get it back to where, like in engineering, is this what his title, what he wants, what his people, you know,
Sure.
his, things have been changed. Like laborer ones, they're all across the board, they're all mixed and changed
I understand.
and,
I just didn't want anyone to feel left out, like we weren't considering the whole
well,
package,
and
so
I told them at the,
I understand.
staff meeting, they're all, we love them all. And it's like we got chocolate and we've got to pass it out equally. And they've been wonderful about it, and they
Great.
know we mean business, so. There's
Moving on.
something else.
Yeah.
We're trying to remember everything on this one. Okay, patrol cars, portable radios, and the CAD will fall under debt service,
That's correct.
okay? So those will all go under debt service. We moved his evidence room. There was something else, though, that the Arconics, where you were paying Arconics, we moved that to your APHIS. Because that was a 20,000 that just been reoccurring. We just left it so you could have the APHIS fingerprinting.
The Arconics is the maintenance fee we've been paying
Right.
annually, almost $20,000 a year, that we're getting nothing for on that current CAD system that's there.
Right.
And we get no support from them whatsoever, so. And we do need the updated APHIS automated fingerprint information system.
So we did that, and I think, Phyllis, did I cover it all?
I believe so.
Chief, have I missed?
No, ma'am, I don't think so. There are several where Phyllis and I sat down, we looked at it, and we went in and we reduced several of those line items.
Right.
Because we really hadn't, and then some of those things, once you got back looking on our end of it, there had been some things miscoded, so we're working on that to shore that up too, so it's a more accurate picture when it actually gets here. Because if it's not coded correctly on the front end, then we got issues.
Right.
And it shows somewhere where it's not supposed to be.
It's hard for us to budget when you got the same charge in two different line items, so we moved some stuff around and cleaned that up. And Chief did a really good job at reducing some of his line items to offset some other areas that he felt he needed additional funds. And of course, everyone's fuel cost is going up, and we included that in this next year's budget. I think the mayor went over the main issues here.
And on the revenue side, since nothing's been done with the alarm permit penalties, the civil penalties, violations, for lack of a better, where we have the multiples and they don't do it and we have multiple calls there,
Right.
will that fit in on the alarm fees
Yes.
code?
Yes,
So either one, on the front end or the back end, that'll fit there,
correct.
which is a general fund revenue.
That will be, if we implement that during this next budget year, that should generate some additional revenue other than what we budgeted, so,
Right.
that will be a good thing. But we're not sure how much that amount is, so it's kind of hard to budget for it right now.
Right.
Is there any explanations on any line items that you need for the police department? If not, we can move on down to fire protection. This past year, we had, of course, had our new fire contract, and with that new fire contract, we had some expenses that we had not had any history of. For instance, electricity and water. We now do have some historical information, so hopefully we can better budget that in this upcoming year. Electricity, we had actually budgeted 22, and it looks like they'll come in about 8, so we estimated about 10,000 for next year. We did put in for the CDAP grant equipment. I believe I say that right. Of course, we have our uniforms. We have the $3,600 for the new truck. There's $3,600 in here for the new truck if we had gotten it, so that needs to come
Well,
out.
now, wait a minute. Now, this is fire protection.
What did we put in $3,600?
There's some items that work out. You see that grant actually was under, it's an emergency service item, but it's on hazmat.
Mm-hmm.
But it was put up into this line, they're the same. It's not going into fire contract, in other words. Those lines that we broke out are not part of fire contract.
Oh, I know. That's not, that shouldn't say new truck out here. Will you see $3,600? That is actually the fuel cost
Yeah.
for the rescue squad.
Yes.
And
Right. There are
and-
lines that are in here, even though it's under fire protection control, it's not our fire contract.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is city service stuff and rescue squad, those things, because it's fuel. Miscellaneous item.
we do have a copier at the fire station, and we do pay a monthly rental on that. And the fire contract itself this year, it goes up annually by $213,000 plus the consumer index, which is at 2.9 plus an additional 1%. So that made the total cost increase about $290,000 roughly for this year. Any questions about the fire protection department? If not, the next department we've eliminated, that's the fire marshal. Those expenses were absorbed up in codes department, or added to the codes department, or moved to the codes department, I should say. So we no longer have that. Our next department is emergency services. We have left in the first responder training. We added the code red expense, which is in our capital plan. It was added, Mayor. And I guess I was wrong on the rescue squad fuel.
3,600 is the hazmat pool truck.
Hazmat pull trailer. Okay, so I need to, that 3,600 that was up in fire protection is really the hazmat trailer, isn't it?
It's fuel for the truck, fuel for the command truck.
Okay,
It's fuel for both.
okay. So I'm,
And it's probably really high. We could probably pull that down.
okay.
And so this would be for the rescue
Yes.
emergency. That's
Yes.
what I thought a while
Yes.
ago when y'all were saying
I
that.
know,
we
it
had-
looked, yeah, this is the line item for the rescue squad.
And then we discussed, are you leaving the rescue squad under emergency services as opposed to not, I think it should be
No.
here as opposed to
Oh, really?
nonprofits,
Oh.
don't y'all?
Well, it's in the
It
nonprofit.
doesn't need to be in both.
Right now, the rescue squad is listed in with the nonprofits. I can move that, it's no problem, if you want me to do
I think by the gas being here.
Okay,
And,
Contract.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Because I remember us having that conversation the other day, Phyllis, but
okay,
I couldn't remember which way we, okay, yeah,
we can move that.
all right.
We've got 31,000 budgeted again for hazmat equipment and supplies.
Also,
And-
in that line too, just so everyone understands, it was $21,000 prior years. We put 10 in there for the first responder program, AEDs, the medical equipment, the oxygen replacement and all of that. So even though that's on a high hazmat line there, those things are also coming out of that.
And we put in the Cascade. We put in the 36 SCBA's, and of course, she said the code red. And that would fall under down at the, what is that, the 259?
Yes.
Yeah, down there.
Is code red now under 259?
I'm sorry?
The 22,000 that you have up top under other professional services, is that code red there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
yes.
The 31,000 in emergency services for AED, first responder equipment, et cetera, that covers all first responders, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That whole program is in that, that's including even, within that, if you were six-wheelers, six-wheeler maintenance, all of that stuff's in there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things, if you broke out even smaller, but all of that's in there.
I was just verifying it wasn't just fire.
And also, let's point out, because I know I've heard some discussion, there was a truck for the hazmat trailer. Because of the CBAs and the Cascade, we moved it, but the Cascade was for the truck, but that's $132,000. So if we want to move that back this year, we need to have some discussion. We've got to come up with, we'll have to,
Well, I think we need to move it back, because that's a
And
mobile
that's-
Cascade, so it's
that's-
needs to go in our truck.
mhm.
And then the truck that they're pulling that with is
Right, one house,
underrated.
that gas
truck.
station.
Yeah.
So
Can I
technically
speak
it's
to
safe.
one issue I have with the truck?
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with yours, mine, or ours. It has to do with the vehicle itself. The truck that we're using now to tow that hazmat trailer, I'm afraid if I call one of my old friends that does commercial vehicle inspections and ask them to come look at that truck, we're gonna have safety issues big time with it. It's not big enough.
That's what they,
It's not equipped to
Well, I
pull
rode
the
from Gallatin
current
back in it,
hazmat
and it's
trailer.
pretty scary.
And I think if worse came to worse, that we could have some potential issues with that down the road in the event there was a crash or something of that nature occurred. Because
It would put us
that
up
truck
for-
simply does not have the capacity to pull that trailer that it's pulling now. The old one, yes. The new hazmat, no. There's too much weight on it.
We've added a lot of equipment, but you have to remember that we've added on the confined space program onto the hazmat team as well. That was a lot of heavy equipment, there's a lot of air equipment, a lot of mobile air equipment, heavy chains, heavy rigging, all of the decon equipment now has been added to the trailer as well. This truck will house that equipment to get that off the axle weight of the trailer as well. So right now, we've not only overweighted the full truck with the trailer, but we've overweighted the axles of the trailer.
The trailer too.
With the extra equipment being put on it. So at this point, we've just grossly overweighted both pieces.
And I think too, this was gonna be used throughout the city.
Correct.
Public
This is a
Works,
multi-disciplinary
for lights.
piece of equipment. It's not just in one division. It's gonna be used for public works, for confined space, for water, sewer, stormwater, anybody that needs that piece of equipment, including crime scene. It's equipment, lighting equipment and stuff for crime scene, for scene reconstruction on MVAs. We tried to combine, rather than buying 2 or 3 vehicles in different departments, we got together with all the departments and what do you need? Well, this truck suffices for all of those.
I mean, could we take fire marshal pay for part of it?
Also, remember too, we are putting in the grant for the
Well, I mean,
We
what,
don't have fire
trailer
marshal.
for our children.
We have the
Yeah.
fire
but the pay
inspector.
had got absorbed in,
That money was in the fire marshal's budget. It's been pulled out and added over to help pay for this truck as well.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, $65,000.
Was that 50,000?
That was in the capital.
Yes, sir.
We had to move it to the fire inspector. What did, but
Could
it
the-
wasn't a full pay.
Could the SCBA's be split year and year?
I would see where there would be no objections to it be split in half. Now, that's not gonna lower that in half, because obviously it would be 18 SCBA one fiscal year and then 18 following. You gotta remember that, the cascade equipment is figured into that too, so it would be splitting that number in half, it would be.
But it would be a reduction, which could be some savings this year
Phase
that
the
could,
SCBA's in, do 18 in this fiscal year, maybe 18 in the following.
Was the number about 232, so if you split that, would that be 116?
The
I
S-
think the cascade equipment was around 55.
And the
No,
SCBA's were
SCBA.
204.
204?
could
Okay,
be
so
102.
That might get it 100.
Well, I mean, what about city administrator pay? We're not gonna fill that anytime soon. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna do.
That, those SCBAs are in the fire contract, Bruce.
Because we
That
can't.
see.
contract had to be rewritten
It's open.
in this fiscal year.
But here's the kicker, the SCBA's are not just for the fire department.
They're for the
They're for
hazmat
every
and the
other
confined
agency.
space.
And we did lower the number, because once again, and we keep bringing this up, we're combining things, but we've done that to try to save money.
Does it say
We
in it?
have 14 team members on the SWAT team with those SCBA reports as well.
15.
Confined space for water, sewer, and stormwater. Those
Does-
SCBA are used for those as well. Those departments don't have SCBA, they have to utilize those as SCBA.
So that's city property, not
But it's
fire.
not-
Right, that we
Contract
will
roof.
own that.
It is in the fire contract, I'm not sure if it specifies what year it has to come out.
I think it
I
says
thought it was
12,
this
13.
year. Yeah,
And I think it says 36, if I'm not mistaken.
It would have to be in the minimum if it was done that way.
Oh.
It shouldn't have been done that way to begin with then,
Okay.
because those are not fire department, that's not fire department equipment. You don't have 36 people, do you?
Well, we don't, we have to have so many per apparatus.
How many do you have? How many SCBA's
How many SCBA?
do you have to have?
Do we have to have 30? Well, the full amount, because they're assigned by ISO to the equipment, not to the number of personnel. SCBA is not assigned to people to.
I understand, but you don't have enough equipment under NFPA to put 36 SCBA's on.
Yes, sir.
You don't roll that many at every fire.
No, sir, but we can't swap them back.
Would we have to
I understand that too, but
do something to the contract, some kind of
We have
legal
to have
to
6 on
change it,
service,
or?
we have to have 6 on ladders,
That
4
would be
on
another
pump.
question.
We have 7 pieces of apparatus, so.
and that's a problem when you're only running 2 per engine.
That
Kind
was one reason we cut the number back.
of ridiculous not to have enough people.
Right, when we originally did this.
put honeys in
the
seats.
need was at like 46, if we were counting SWAT and water and sewer and all the fire, it was like 46 SCBA. We cut that back because we were sharing it all. I mean, Chief's right, we're not running all of that, well, we could run all of those pieces of equipment all at one time. If we do a recall back in, and even then, once we put the 3 new on right now, we'll still only be looking at 25 men, so we'd be utilizing 25. But in a hazmat incident, we could have as many as, well, all of our 14 SWAT members could be in SCBA. All of our 25 firemen could be in there. So that's where we put the number at 32 to get it, or 36 to get it where it needs to be. So we have something for everyone if we had an event of that size. And not swapping SCBA from truck to truck on a daily basis.
You asked about that, the administrator. It,
I mean, it's still in there. We don't have one.
we can, but it can be a one-time purchase. It cannot be paying for anything that's reoccurring. And that would be up to this board whether they chose to hire one this budget year. If they didn't, we would need to have an interim appointed. We can use that money. However, it cannot be something that it could be a one-time purchase, but it cannot be something that we need it this year and next year and next year.
Well, I'm just like the chief. I think it's a safety issue. If they wreck that truck, somebody's gonna own the city, because it's kind of like having an ambulance. It's overweight. When you put me, my partner, and somebody else in there, and it wrecks, you're responsible.
But you think that we may be open to splitting those 36 to maybe
I mean,
18.
obviously, it's a contract amended with fire. I mean,
That's something legal that,
if that have to be negotiated in the fire contract, yes, but as Chief was saying, though, we have 25 firemen on, so if we split it in half, we're not gonna take completely out of service the ones that we currently have anyway. We take the best of those moving forward, add the 18. I don't see where there would be any issues with splitting it over 2 fiscal years. But I mean, obviously, I'm not the final say so on that, that could go to the fire chief.
Well, and the thing too, with the SCBA itself, the SCBA is not gonna be assigned to a particular firefighter who carries it with them all the time. It's gonna be there on a regular basis, because the only thing they have issued to them is the mask.
The mask.
Everything else, the respirator, the tank, et cetera, is all one package that stays there.
something I guess we gotta look into, is even possible, right? I mean, as far as,
We'll have to look at the contract.
Split it
That'd be
up.
probably an Evan question too. That we're, you know,
We
when
are
we're
currently
doing,
working on an amendment anyway to the first responder program.
so we'll
So
have
it's not
to,
like we're not already looking at things. I mean, it just be a chief, fire chief, and that working out,
You can call him and ask him.
which one I can handle. I hand an answer right there if you want.
That'd help.
I do.
That'd help give us some idea of what we can do. I mean, if he's willing,
I mean.
gives us a thought.
Are you making notes too, fellas?
Yeah. And we're going down to
Yeah.
highways and streets while Ricky's looking at that.
Okay, got it. And I do have a change on that one too. Don't forget.
Highways and streets.
Mhm.
Health insurance has gone up, gonna go up a little bit there. We increased the repair and maintenance service by 5,000. We reduced the operating supplies by 10. We reduced mowing by 5. We took out the sign regs. That's no longer needed. We added $30,000 for a dump truck. And we added $110,000 for a clam truck and hot box.
They do not want the hot box.
Yeah,
Go for
it's, after doing some research, I was all for it. Evidently, it's a lot more work than it's actually gonna save them.
So are we putting anything back or just taking it out completely?
Just taking it out.
Okay.
I think you gotta
how
have
much we
more.
taking out?
It's
15.
15,000.
I think you gotta have more equipment to go with it other than just the hot box.
Yeah.
To be able to use it like right then.
And that is from them, so,
Yeah, it was kind of it sounded good
And,
when it first said, but I think there's more to it than,
and that Batwing mower is coming out of State Street Aid on your capital project sheet. Batwing, isn't that the one that we said, State Street Aid? I think this will be paying for that. So that will not be paid for out of this. Did I remember everything then?
the clam truck. Didn't
Yes,
they say they could get one cheaper than what?
yes, we knocked that down from 137 to 95. Yes.
Any other questions about streets? If not, we can move on down to fleet. What we did in fleet maintenance for staffing is we had in the budget last year and started out in the budget for next year for 2 mechanics. We have combined those positions and raised the pay grade to maybe obtain a certified mechanic. We took out $50,000 out of the police fleet line, anticipating with all the new vehicles that we won't see as much in vehicle maintenance. We took out, or we reduced the operating supplies line. I think there was some fleet software was in there, and I think we were able to possibly get some other kind of software at a much reduced cost. That was the only changes for fleet.
Yes.
The next section down was where the rabies and animal control, where we had had our nonprofit Paul's contribution. We have moved all of the nonprofit down to our next section that you see called culture. All the nonprofits are now lumped in as one number, and you have a backup sheet behind your copy there that should have a list of the nonprofits. And as the mayor mentioned, we're going to move the rescue squad, and we are going to separate them and put them on a separate line item. So this number will be reduced, and then I will increase the line item in emergency services to reflect that difference.
Is Paul's going to come back and ask us for another 6,000, I would imagine?
Yes, they did. They were asking for 27,000.
27?
Yeah.
We got them 15. This time we have documented.
There is one group that's very closely affiliated with us that has been here for a few years, and that's the Child Advocacy Center, CAC. In the past, the city always did 3,500. It was dropped last year to 1,000, Phyllis, is that correct?
That's correct.
The Child Advocacy Center serves many families and children here in Laverne. Every time we have a child abuse, a child sexual abuse, a child neglect, domestics where children are involved and they need the assistance or counseling, if it's a child sexual abuse or rape, etc., we have to have what's known as a forensic interviewer. Those are interviewers who are specially trained to talk to children, who can get to the bottom line and be able to ask questions that does not permanently damage that child, hopefully, which is difficult because of the things that occur to them sometimes anyway. But every time we have an instance, we have to have forensic interviewers. Those interviewers have to be paid for. The Child Advocacy Center does that up front. They provide that. They provide the counseling. They provide the support. They provide the temporary housing. For $1,000 this year, we're getting all of that. The reason I'm saying this, their budget for the most part comes from United Way contributions. They're getting ready to do their duck race. I know you all know about that event. You've heard about it for years, where they did the duck races. Other things where there are funds that are collected. They also get a big portion from, it's pushed down from federal government to State Department of Children's Services. One of the problems we've got this year is the Department of Children's Services is trying to cut their budget 10%. We're all, I say we, from the law enforcement side, we're all pushing at my level to our state legislators to fight that. But that's only a handful of legislators statewide, so I don't know what's going to happen. We have many other child advocacy centers throughout the state, but a 10% lick would be a pretty good chunk of change. I would like to ask this board, and I can provide you all of the information, all of the data, if you would like to have it, and I'll be glad to do it. And I'll formally ask you to consider moving that back to the 3,500 it was.
We moved it to 3. We've already moved it.
Oh, have
to
you?
3, yes.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that. I
think
didn't
the reason-
realize that, or I wouldn't have taken
Yeah.
that
I
time.
think the
but-
reason it went down, nobody could really explain it.
I know. I think it's because nobody paid attention and nobody picked up on it, but that's very
Yeah.
valuable to us in the community and to us at the PD as well for those children.
Yeah, that was moved.
Thank you.
It'll be the 12, 13, oh, I don't know if y'all have it.
I didn't
yeah.
have that. so
But
that's
yeah,
the reason.
it's been moved.
And while y'all were talking, I made that change on here I reduced that, the nonprofits to 175,034, and then I increased a line item in emergency services for the rescue squad of 40,000. And I know you guys haven't had time to look through the nonprofits. It's pretty much the same as list as last year. We didn't add any new ones or add any back that we had not contributed to last year. There were some minor increases that are normal increases. The RTA program generally has a little bit of an increase each year, and GNRC changes every year, and the Rutherford County Civil Defense, which is we pay a portion of Roger Allen's wages and benefits.
Do we want to look at increasing any of these? I know that's probably not popular, but we took a lot away last year, and I mean, there's some quality organizations here that I think I mean, Second Harvest.
Well, we do the Smyrna Laverne
I
Food
understand.
Bank. And, right, I mean, even though we've added, we still have a lot we have to do
I
here.
understand.
And I think we've been generous. I think we've picked out the ones that support our area, increased those. And like I said, we still have a great deal that we've got to come up with and really watch. And I think last year we picked out the ones that we felt were the biggest advocates here, and that's my opinion. And
I hear it, and I just, again, we're not talking about a lot of money here. I mean, we really aren't. We dropped it, and we took 6,000 back from pause, which I'm certain at some point they're going to come back in and ask for it again. If
well, we've got documentation now where they're not answering their phone when we call, so. And I'll tell that man right here, he doesn't, you know, oh, they promised us, give us the money, we'll be here. I've had officers on the scene begging,
I don't have any problem with that.
you know, so.
I think we've
How
all
about
had
the-
issues.
The destination Rutherford, it's 40, it used to be 34.2. Do we get much out of that? I mean, seriously, in all reality,
If you want to be honest, I
Could-
don't know.
could we not bring that down to 30 and maybe add some to Laverne, Smyrna Food Bank, the Meals on Wheels?
I tell you,
Anytime
Do
you
we-
deal with the chamber, you're cutting your throat.
What do they do for us? I mean, seriously, what do we get from the chamber?
Maybe we need them coming here asking us.
I mean, that's my thought.
We can-
Destination Rutherford, it doesn't Destination
It's always
Laverne.
been a sore
It's
spot with me.
Destination Murfreesboro, Smyrna, anywhere but Laverne.
You know, I don't remember seeing Destination Rutherford on Smyrna's.
But what I'm saying is, what do we get? What do they bring to Laverne?
Maybe we're the suckers.
What does the chamber do for Laverne? Seriously.
Come to
Well-
ribbon cutting.
Can I say something also? We're still 2 or 3 people short of having everyone on Meals on Wheels fed. We picked up, I think, 5 more people. So if you're gonna consider it, where we've got at least 2 or 3 seniors or disabled still on that waiting list.
I mean, I'd rather take-
$3,000.
I'd rather
to
take
feed the
10
last
grand from
3.
Destination Rutherford and do it to Meals on Wheels, Smyrna Laverne Food Bank, something like that. I mean, because
That, I don't mind doing.
we're not really getting a lot from Destination Rutherford. I mean, come on, it's Destination anywhere but Laverne.
The thing is, those 5 and maybe a little bit more than that were actually done by city employees. After we did the thing.
I mean, I'd
We
just
did
soon
other
get back to
other
Laverne.
things too.
Absolute, like, they divide it out, and this, if you want to participate, this is your portion, like RTA. Is the chamber like that with the Destination Rutherford?
I mean, I appreciate them letting us use their building, but we still have to pay for all that.
I don't see that kind of breakdown in the documentation. It just
I
says-
didn't either.
It just says a flat
That's
40,000.
one small part of the chamber. We pay more than that.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I appreciate getting to use that building for the retreat, but we pay for that.
You've
I'd just
got-
rather take 10 out of the destination and put it up here in something that would make a difference. I'm sure it's probably
Now,
not.
where is the Destination? Because see, it's,
We paid it.
But at one point, it was 34 too.
They don't make any
Yeah, it's 40.
difference.
there it is, okay.
Why not bump it down to 30 and we'll see what they really give us? mean, they ain't gonna give us any less.
We'll give it a whirl.
That's my, I mean, I don't know what everybody else feels.
I don't, I really
Everybody
honestly.
seems to think we
Because
can't
if you,
do
if you
anything
do the
about it.
destination Rutherford, like if you want to participate, you pay. If they have ribbon cuttings, the people doing the ribbon cuttings,
I'll go buy a big pair of
you
scissors and some
know
ribbon.
that you pay for them to come out to cut the ribbon. It's
Well,
not free.
let's be
So that's what I'm
honest.
saying.
We're not getting a
What
lot
was
of
it? We
businesses
found
here
out
right
it
now.
was $200 or $300 just for them to come out.
You have to join the chamber and
Mhm.
then whatever that fee is, and then 200 for the actual
For-
ribbon
for
cutting
the-
event.
yes.
Well, okay, let's cut it down to 20.
So you have to pay for that.
Just
That's,
cut it out.
I'm like Miss Sherry, take the whole 40 out, we'll
I
split it
don't
back
say
to
cut it out, because I think they are a valuable resource to us.
But I mean, let's take it down some and
I
add some
agree,
and some other
take
stuff.
the 10,000 you said, we're still paying them something, and we can separate that into,
And maybe
three
if
or
they
four
see
of
it
us.
goes down, they'll help us out a little more.
okay.
So you want
So
to
take the destination down to 30.
Okay.
it sounds good to me.
And I mean, I'd like to see the Meals on Wheels, maybe the food bank,
But we
one of
also
these other
pay
ones that helps.
40,000
Okay.
for Destination
Laverne.
Rutherford, 15,000.
You can, now y'all,
I
y'all
don't
got
care
10
how
to divvy out.
I don't care how it gets separated, I just like to see it separated into things that help Laverne, the coalition, you know,
Yeah, because
the
we
child
upped
advocacy,
it.
how many
Yeah.
did they
Okay, we're
help?
taking it down to
Hold on now.
The other question is,
Take it
where
down
does
to
Deborah
what?
Balthrop's
30.
funds come
30?
from?
It should just come from the convention and tourism.
Take that down, or take the,
And they cut
Destination down
those
to 30.
hours also.
Huh?
They cut those hours also.
Yeah, they did.
We also
don't
have-
get the same hours running.
We also have the Rutherford the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development. We give them 23,000, and we give the
is that where they talk
Convention.
businesses into coming to Laverne?
Yeah, and they pay for two of us that they're sending out in May, they pay for. They pay for their
Like,
flight.
membership.
And their membership, which was, I think around about, almost 1,000 a person this year. So they do pay for that.
So we give them how much? Did you say it's
do
23?
it this way.
23 for the, it's up at the, kind of at the top. Like the
23, we'll
fourth
get
one.
$2,000 worth of plane tickets.
And that, I mean, they do
Operation Tango.
about, yeah.
Well, you got Saks Fifth Avenue also.
Yeah, we got Saks and,
They are working on stuff here, I don't know how much, but
they're supposed to be. We're supposed to be included like the other.
it's one of those, you're dang if you take it, and you're dang if you don't.
I know,
Well,
but you
so-
hardly
You
know
know what?
what to do.
I don't want to say this, but it'd be nice to see them come up here and ask for our support and have us give us reasons why we did this.
we can invite them.
That can be done.
We can invite them.
I want them to ask us. I want them to come
And
to us.
explain why you need it. Help us,
I
what
had,
have you seen?
I had the Rutherford County Health Department, we had reduced their nonprofit contribution from 4,000 to 2,000 last year, and she certainly wants to speak at a workshop to fight to get her 4,000 back, which I think we did. But she said, you know, I'll do whatever it takes, I'll come and speak, I'll beg,
They
you know.
do good. They take people, yeah.
So I didn't hear who you said it was.
Rutherford
Health.
County Health Department.
Health Department.
Vice Mayor, you asked how many children. In '09, there were 199. In '10, there were 104. And in '11, 206.
Saying,
Those
I
were
mean,
fiscal years.
206 out of $3,000.
Well, that was 3,500 then. In 2012, we don't have the numbers yet, but it was 1,000 in 2012 instead of 3,500. We won't have that. The biggest problem they've got is the federal VOCA grant provides 48,923, which is the Victims of Crimes Act. That's been reduced by the feds, by Congress. State meth grant has been reduced by Congress. And then the state DCS Child Advocacy Center grant was 50, that's being reduced by 10, and state DCS Forensic Interviewer grant 35, that's being reduced by 10%. The National CAC grant, CAC grant was a total of $150, so that kind of gives you an idea of what federal dollars are doing. They're going away very quickly.
If y'all don't mind, we've been here for an hour and a half, and we need to take a quick break. If y'all don't mind.
Works for me.
We'll be right back. Quick break.